Don't think healthcare professionals have any business experience? Think again. No topic is off limits as we share tales from our brave hosts who will always tell it like it is. We are #NoFilterHealthcare. Here to guide you through your healthcare journey are your hosts, Taylor Dunn and Tamara Donda. We want to thank our sponsor, Uptime Health, the leading healthcare equipment and compliance management software company, for bringing this podcast to fruition. Visit uptimehealth.com to learn more. Let's get started.
Welcome to #NoFilterHealthcare. I'm your co-host, Taylor Dunn.
And I'm your other co-host, Tamara Donda. And today we have our guest speaker, William Kohl, who is the president at F1IT.
Thanks for joining us today, William.
How are you doing?
We're good. How have you been?
Pretty good. Weather is getting a lot hotter over here. I started my day at 4 a.m. I'm a little tired. It's a long day, but otherwise pretty good. Excited to meet with you guys.
Well, we appreciate you joining our podcast today. It's always great to have an Uptime Health partner on the show, and especially an IT expert, so we can hear your perspective on how dental is protecting itself from cybersecurity, or with cybersecurity, I should say. So I want to kind of get right into it and have our listeners hear a rundown of the services that F1IT provides and how you got your start in the dental industry.
Sure. Well, F1IT is a dental specialized IT company. We started off a little bit more on being reactive to things. Of course, something breaks and we fix it, but very shortly into it, realized that that's not really a good way to look at things or to maintain things, right? We want to have a proactive approach to, managing risk and, making sure that we, hey, I didn't even realize this, but manage the uptime of the practice. But yeah, so through that, we deployed a lot of support and security services that really just make sure that the practices stay on top of what technology has to offer and uses it to empower the practice for success and growth.
How'd you get into dental? Was it you just kind of happened to enter into the market? I'm just curious.
Well, it's a question that I get asked all the time, but we kind of stumbled upon it, and it was more of a personal story. I was having my own treatment, my own orthodontic treatment, and I was sitting across from the orthodontist, frustrated, banging the desk, saying like, "You don't happen to know anything about computers, do you?" And at the time, I was studying stuff, and it was of course a hobby, and I was able to get their Panorex, which is a very expensive piece of equipment in the office, working for them, where their IT company wasn't able to get that to work. So it kind of just went on from there. It got a little more specialized in the practice management systems, and then through the last 19 years now, this is where we are. We're a dental specialized IT company.
Wow, I love that. It's like it inspired you to help everyone else in the market. That's so cool.
Yeah, it's we recognized a need, and there we were to fill it.
Yeah, love that. Well, so I don't know if you've heard the last couple of podcast episodes, but we spoke with some industry professionals about some technology advancements and compliance in the dental industry. And so when we knew you were going to be on the podcast, I had to hear with #NoFilter. What do you think are going to be the top challenges the industry will face regarding new technology, and how to stay protected while continuing to grow with these advancements?
Well, technology in general is just growing and advancing at an exponential rate. It's not like anything stepwise, like, oh, we're getting 2% better this year, and then next year another 2%. It's just something that's always changing and advancing. I can have a consultation with a dentist today and expressing all the gaps that they may have or technology that may be able to help. And 2 months later, I can have an entirely separate conversation that with new technology that's even further developed. Oh, wait, we found something even better. Um, So I mean, the technology that's available is just continuously changing. We're getting into an increasingly digital world, where even as a dentist, you're usually focused on, providing care to your patients. But now we have a lot of other things to juggle, like, digital presence, right? We want to make sure that when someone Googles dentist near me, there's a result with your name on it. And of course, in terms of compliance, especially throughout the pandemic, we've been, in a more remote work environment, and there's been more of a focus on how technology aids us in that and the security that's involved. But I mean that's really just where we're headed, and there's things to be excited about, and there's more things to think about security wise.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely exciting, and I love the point of typing in something and then you showing up because I talk marketing all the time.
Oh, yeah.
That's just so important. So important. So yeah, you're absolutely correct. So, like Uptime Health, we definitely know the struggle of marketing a product that isn't necessarily quote unquote sexy, right? Like, no one wants to talk about equipment management. They're just like, like, what is that for? And I know sometimes like IT and cybersecurity may fall into that same category. So, what do you guys do to really stand out, make them know that the value is in the product and that they need you really?
Well, you're right. I guess especially in terms of compliance, it is not sexy. Equipment management's not a sexy thing. But I'm sorry to say, but
We know.
one,
We own it.
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, from a technology's perspective, we do deal with some sexy things, right? Like the things that you know, give a practice some wow factor. But in terms of compliance, it is difficult to, almost sell it, even though selling it is not really the right term because, compliance, is not optional, right? And that's one of the things that we struggle with, in a conversation with a client that oh, it's really difficult to have different usernames for every user that's in the practice. Like I just want to have the same password for everything or no password at all. Or, like, oh, it's okay. Like I just walked into another practice with equipment like digital imaging equipment that was first generation. I mean, like it had to have been from the 70s or something. But it's usually a balance between having the conversation like, oh, where can we save you money, versus this is something operational, right? This is supposed to empower my practice, and long term, it'll provide the practice with, a better experience. So instead of a cost to be managed, it's really just something that empowers your practice. And compliance is one of those things. Not only are you managing your own practice's risk, but you're, expressing how much you care about your patients by protecting their data, protecting their health, protecting like even your own reputation in a sense. So, I know I kind of jumped around a little bit, but you can sort of make compliance sexy when you talk about it like that. This is what you'll get. This is something to actually be excited about.
Hey, you heard it here. Compliance is now sexy. Speaking of like, okay, the whole password situation, because immediately my mind's like ding ding ding, like
Yeah.
passwords are always like a big problem. But is there any other like common issue that you see whenever you go and evaluate a practice and you're like, okay, this is what you should have been doing like months ago? Is there anything like that like kind of sparks your pitch?
Well, not necessarily a pitch. Our company drive is to provide value, right? And in doing that, we always make and we set it out there like suggestions, right? We identify gaps in cybersecurity, in process, and in operations, and we put forth a plan to close those gaps eventually, according to whatever the goals are of the practice and budget and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, passwords is a big thing. It's like, wow. Sometimes you're surprised that, oh, yeah, I'll just leave my terminal open facing the waiting room with all the patient's data on it. And, the key thing is that, in compliance, you need an audit trail. So, this was done by this person, and, if there was this event, what was done to resolve it? I mean, I can kind of go over a list of things, but dentistry in general, it's a little it's a little difficult for especially smaller practices to grasp cybersecurity because, again, they just see it as a cost to be managed. Like, oh, why do I have to pay for this? Nothing's happened. It's been 10 years. Until, of course, it does happen. And then here we are with, we have to make a kind of public display about it and, pay these, you know, substantial fees and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, it's really just a long list, especially with access in particular. Uh, the practice management. Everybody's got to have a user. Every computer has to have a user. When you walk away, there should be a lock time. There's really just a lot, and I'd probably take 2 hours on this podcast if I were to list them all.
Yeah, it's definitely that proactive, reactive approach. Like it's definitely trying to find a happy medium, right, to get people to
Yeah.
realize the importance of your product. So
Yeah, the people who really grasp it, I'm telling you, do really well within their practice. Like, hey, I realize that this thing is essential. It's not optional. And hey, I already see the benefits of it. And they're more hardcore about it than we are at that point. Like, oh, we had to offboard an employee, you know, get rid of this access and, whatnot. But you know, when the benefits are realized, it's easy to continue forward.
I'm curious, do you have like almost like a horror story or something that is like one of those really good stories about any it's just maybe even something that happened to someone else, it doesn't even have to be like a client kind of thing, but I'm just curious, it's like juicy. I want to I want to hear like what happened.
tell us
Uh,
all.
Yeah.
I'll we'll try not to be too specific, but there are plenty of horror stories. I mean, especially in regards to backups, right? Backups are, I want to say, the biggest thing to keep an eye on. And we always consider backups in terms of business continuity and disaster recovery, right? We want to know that in the event of, well, anything, our business can continue. In the event of a disaster, for example, we want to know that if there was a fire or a ransomware event, that our data is secure. Um, so yeah, I used to say like, oh, just in case this and that. But yeah, we've seen fires. Fire took out the entire practice. It started with like a little dust on the HVAC system, lit on fire, the whole place went down.
Wow.
With it set up properly, we were able to get that same dentist operational. We were hosting their server in our office, and they were up and running in 2 hours. Even that is, you know, it was an event. We had to clean up. There was a fire, but their practice essentially was safe because all the data was still there. Another horror story is almost the opposite, right? The no preparation, the cost to be managed, right? We always expressed to this one previous customer and then now current customer that you need somebody to count on, right? You need to be supported and secure. Most especially, again, your backups. So, oh, it's been, 10 years and nothing's happened. We get a call that, oh no, my system has ransomware, everything's encrypted, they want all this Bitcoin, and of course it's like $40,000 of Bitcoin, and like it just got real out of hand real quick. And I was like, okay, well, we haven't been servicing your practice. Who has been, and where are your backups? Let's start there. And they were like, oh, we didn't have anybody. There was nobody managing the backups, and man, what a nightmare that was. It's first of all, we did resolve the issue. It was a nightmare, at least a month-long process. And keep in mind that this is a month with no data, no practice data, no appointments. They have no idea who's coming in, no digital records, no anything. Uh, we got in touch with a lot of mainstream do-gooders in the technology world, like Cisco. They sometimes release some decryption keys, and there's companies that do exactly this, recover your data from ransomware. But let me tell you, it is not cheap. And for those maybe years that you're not covered, if you were to just maintain and be proactive the entire time, I'm telling you, just without being too specific, this costs maybe 100 times more,
Wow.
just in recovery. And it's again, without being too specific, there
Right.
are horror stories
Oh,
like you
yeah.
wouldn't believe.
Just that alone, I'm like, could not imagine being a business owner and having that happen to me. And it could have been a simple solution of just having a company like you guys covering them, you know? So, but I love to hear those horror stories because for me, that's motivation. That's like, these are the facts. This happens, even though it doesn't seem like it's going to happen to you, it can happen tomorrow, unfortunately. So I think it's important to hear.
It is, and it happens more than you would think.
Right. Well, it was really great to have you on today, William. We know how important it is for any business to make sure that their data is protected, but especially in healthcare, dealing with patient information. So we appreciate your insight and education on this subject. And if our listeners would like to learn more about F1IT, make sure you visit F1ITinc.com and subscribe to our podcast or comment below if you have any questions for us. Thanks, William.
Thank you. Compliance is sexy. Just believe
That's the hashtag.
it.
Compliance is
Yeah, we're
sexy.
just going to leave it at that.